Welcome to my video about alternate castings of Batman throughout the ages. Now, you could look throughout the internet and find all kinds of they almost made this Batman movie with this actor. And it's fun to imagine what if. But one of the rabbit holes I've gone down is what would it look like if they made Batman in these particular decades, the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. And yeah, so this is kind of what I'm doing here. So here are my picks. The first one would have to be Gregory Peck in the 50s. Now, my reasoning for this is that he is demonstrated in two movies, Roman Holiday and The Omen, that he's a man in pursuit, that he knows his trade, and when he does, nothing stops that objective. Like in Roman Holiday, he's been doing his job for so long that he effortlessly goes through it, and when something irregular happens, he knows how to handle it with very, very little difficulty and a surprising amount of ease. Plus, he just has that, it gets thrown around, the sort of raw, thoughtful intensity, like you see the gears turning in his head. And he can communicate so much with so little. The next person, I kind of thought about it. I would say for the 60s and the 70s would be Marlon Brando. Now, it's Marlon Brando, so goes without saying. And I'm thinking if he retains the physicality that he had from A Streetcar Named Desire, and, Marlon Brando is just a little bit nutty, and the intensity of his method acting, you've got to wonder what he would do, if he tried to bring that to Batman. Like, who knows? And he really was sort of like the founder of method acting, or like one of the first actors who brought it to public knowledge. So I'd be really curious to see where he went with that. And then for the 80s, I would have to say it'd be Vincent D. Onfroyo, or I'm butchering his last name. I couldn't figure it out. But anyway, the guy who played Wilson Fisk in Netflix's Daredevil series, and who played Gomer Pyle in Full Metal Jacket. So, I've seen him in some other movies, and my first thing is basically Full Metal Jacket. He plays that sort of tortured soul who becomes a killer capable of so much destruction. And yeah, I would see him more in the role of Batman in the 80s than I would Michael Keaton. Who knows what it would have been like if, Tim Burton had gone in that direction. And let's see, for the 90s, to finish this video, I would go with Campbell Scott from Dying Young. Now, this is not one that I've thought of a lot. It just happened this morning. But I was watching the trailer for that movie he was with Julia Roberts in Dying Young. And I guess the thing that wins me over for him is he seems resigned to his fate and just thinking of life and purpose. That's an intrinsic part of Batman. Now, there is this irony though. I looked So with Michael Keaton, I couldn't picture him as Batman in his movie in the 80s. There was just something lacking. And then later on, as I saw him play different roles in the 2000s, I'm like, okay, this in this time, I could picture him playing Batman, but not back then. With Campbell Scott, it was sort of the reverse. I saw a contemporary picture of him, and it just wasn't doing it for me. But in the early 90s, it made sense. So those are my choices for alternate castings.